Thank you to everybody for coming back in fairly promptly. We'll work on that for after lunch. And I'm talking to those outside, not you, obviously, because you're all here. So moving on to the second part of our presentations, I'm really pleased to introduce, I think, to some of you, but maybe not everybody, Peoplesafe, a technology software as a service company, a technology manufacturer provider, a GSOC, and covering all sorts of aspects of people safety, essentially. I really think that the product has a lot of latitude, and I've invited John to come and talk to us today about travel risk management, but there's a lot more that this can do, but it really does lend itself to real-time reporting and managing of a crisis, whether that is your employee falling over in the street and knocking themselves out. Well, this application will identify that they have not moved, and somebody will talk to them, which just means that rather than having something really expensive deployed or somebody monitoring, you've got now software which is efficiencies, actually real time, as long as they're happy with it on their device, and there's complications. But I think it's an alternative, and it's a different aspect. So I'm not going to steal all John's thunder, because everybody so far that stood here has accused me of stealing their thunder somewhat. So I will invite John Seddon up to the stage, and I will get out the way. John.
Thanks very much, Rick, and thanks to everyone for joining today. I have no doubt that the majority of you have quite enjoyed the fact that you've managed to attend this specific venue because of its proximity to St Pancras Station. Just by show of hands, how many of you took today public transport to get here? As expected, right? Middle of London, that's what demands are required of us. There will no doubt, unfortunately, despite Rick's best efforts, be some people who couldn't make today, or were running late, or had to leave early. It just makes me think whether or not their organisation that they work for knew that they couldn't make it today. Whether or not they had a policy or a procedure in place that ensured that they knew what to do to inform that they weren't making that meeting or that event. Because there will be some people out there today going to their organisation who have experienced something very different. Some people won't have even been able to leave their home due to domestic abuse victimisation and attacks from partners or family members. Some people will be on a tube or a train and witness an altercation or be involved in an altercation in this new temperature of risk that we face in the UK on public transport. And some people might witness or be involved in a health incident on a train or a tube or a bus or on their journey to and from work. How does their organisation know what's going on with them? How do they inform their organisation as to what's taking place? So my plan today is to talk to you about the risk, particularly in the UK. I think there's other experts in the room that could probably attest to more that takes place outside of the UK. And I want to just pick up on what technology is available to organisations to help their members of staff feel less risk and manage their risk in a more automated way. So why am I up here? Well, it's not just for my good looks. What? Laughing? That's not fair. I'm here because I've got, despite my good looks, 16 years experience in delivering lone worker technology and personal safety technology to a wide range of organisations, whether that be one person within an organisation or thousands, whether that be a public sector or whether that be somebody working in a corporate or more professional environment. That's me. I've got experience of working for Peoplesafe in the past, actually. So I've got, as I say, 16 years in this game. But in 2009, when I first started, under a different badge name, Skyguard at the time, their main job was to promote and build this service from the scratch, and that required credibility. The service essentially allows for any user to raise an alarm at any time, anywhere, and get support from an alarm receiving centre, as we call it, or GSOC, or operations centre, as you would call it. The way that we gained that credibility in 2009 was that we were built by the police for the police. Our solutions originally were built to be provided to domestic abuse victims, so the police would provide that to them as part of their package to mitigate risk. So they would be given a dedicated device pointing back to our alarm receiving centre, and because of that relationship with the police, we could offer something quite magical, a URN level police response, a guaranteed level 1 police response. And so was born the lone worker industry. We started to move that into a more commercial model, whereby we started to engage with other businesses. Our first customer, for example, was EDF. You can imagine the kind of risks that their staff would be facing going into people's homes. Now obviously known as UK Power Networks, they remain one of our customers. But as a business, it's important to note, a bit braggy, we're the largest of providers of technology around this space in the world. It is a truly international service that we can offer. So while I will be focusing more on the UK, because of the way that the standards operate in our industry, I will also talk a little bit later on about how we operate overseas. We've got just over 250, probably closer to 300,000 people being monitored through our own dedicated alarm receiving centre. That ARC is based out of our head office in Epsom in Surrey, not a million miles away from here, so we would welcome, if anybody's interests have been piqued, to come along and have a tour of that facility to see, in what my opinion is, what good looks like. We work with a range of organisations now, from central and local government, even protecting MPs, royal family, all the way through to an engineer or an NHS nurse that's going into your home and delivering care or services. We've started to see that more organisations in the professional scape, professional services, LLPs, solicitors, the PwCs of this world, are very keen to understand how personal safety technology in an app format actually delivers better retention of staff, better recruitment of staff, and also an increase in productivity. And again, I'll touch upon that shortly. Emphasising the braggingness, right? You know, we've got lots of customers that we can talk about. I think the main thing I want to get across here is that the organisations that are referenced, they're all wildly different, right? Everybody has their different processes and policies that they have to follow and be led by. So it's important that a solutions provider like ourselves can tailor-make our technology to mitigate their specific risks. Now, Peoplesafe released a survey in 2022. We commissioned the largest survey of its kind. It was called the, has that gone to the wrong one? No. With regards to the survey that we released, it was called the Safety Gap Perception Survey. So it was actually measuring what people's perception of risk was versus the business's acceptable perception of risk. And it talked about the implications of staff needing more, feeling like they needed to be more reassured, or that they needed a technology to be in place to deliver some tangible changes to how people felt when they were working. And one of the things that came up was that 60% of people, let's see if this works now. Yeah, it's not showing. 60% of people that were surveyed within this report, over 3,000 organisations and their employees, stated that 60% of them felt less safe on their commute to and from work. I think that's probably expected, right? That's a stat that you probably expect. But as we're returning to office, as we're starting to ask staff to do more outside of their normal working day, as a lawyer is trying to go and become a partner in their organisation, they're socialising outside of work, they're networking like we are today, you're adding risk to their lives, not just during busy periods where the train services or public transport is expected to be running, but also late at night, cabs, long journeys through car parks, long journeys through parks to get to the next tube station. I'm thinking about the Sarah Everard situation, somebody getting off a tube or finishing a party in Clapham and going off through a park to try and get to their home and doing all the things that we know that women have to do to try and make themselves feel safe. The survey that we've completed in 2022 is available, and if you want to have access to it for a full list of what those stats look like, I can share that with you. And I'll still talk about a few more of those in a minute. But one of the things that we noticed from splitting out by gender was that women have a far higher This is obvious, right? Women have a far higher perception of risk, and they mitigate their risk in a wide range of different ways. And one of the things that the British Transport Police established was that 33% of women who were surveyed have been sexually harassed on their commute. But really surprisingly, most offences are occurring during that busiest period, 5 to 7 p.m. And I find that astounding, because I think that's when it is busiest. That is when I've got witnesses. And yet it's through that environment of busy, packed trains, people who are trying to get home, people that don't want to overstep when they think someone might be carrying a knife. We have to accept some of these things to de-risk ourselves. So me as a witness, I can't get involved. I would. I hope I would. And I think we probably all hope that we would. But that doesn't stop the fact that this is still going on. Retail. And retailers are in your high street. Your staff who work in retail take public transport, just like your businesses that operate in those streets do. Schools have kicking out times. Detention finishes, and you get the rapscallions that are on that train with you. You've got a wide range of different things to consider. The worst case is murder, okay? And I can't believe that this takes place so regularly, right? I think there were 80 cases of women being murdered, majority of times by their partner, but these are cases that I've pulled out that talk in particular about how people have been affected by attacks, aggression, abuse, threats, and ultimately, in some cases, murder as part of their job. The one in the middle that I want to talk about that's reported through The Guardian was about a lady called Rhiannon Sky White. She was murdered at a train station after she'd finished working at a hotel. Sadly, she was murdered by somebody who was staying at that hotel. So it just goes to show what people have to start thinking about when they go to and from their job, and whether or not their family accept that that's okay. I think if I had a daughter who was going to be working in a hotel and I'd read that story, I'd be thinking about telling her, maybe think about getting a different job. I feel like that's too much risk for you. So that's the personal impact of this. What about the business impacts? 46% of people surveyed through our employee and employer survey said that they'd avoid now working late due to personal safety fears. Now, talk about a loss of productivity. You think about a generation of people that are joining the workforce, perceiving this risk and actually seeing it. They don't want to even go to an office, let alone work extra hours or go above and beyond to try and make a name for themselves in that organisation and take that next step. So it affects legacy and it affects productivity. 1 in 4 people have left a job due to safety concerns in the experience that they might have had in the last 5 years. That's unsurprising, right? I think people will accept it for a period of time. You look at the NHS as a perfect example of people who care so much that they will carry on suffering it up to a point. A terrible story about an NHS member of staff who went into someone's home that she knew and trusted very well, but somebody else was in that building with her, in that house with them, a nephew or a cousin, I think it might have been, who was not particularly happy because of the level of care that she'd been receiving from the NHS staff. She decided that it was too risky and she left. And as she left, the nephew or cousin, I can't quite recall, opened the door to let her leave and licked her face as she left. She never came back to work. Not even an attack, but a violation. It's astounding, it really is. And so it's because of these things that 83% of people surveyed have said that they've changed their behaviour to feel safer. And that could be changing jobs. That could be working from home more often. That could be deployment of a personal safety app, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. It could be that they are now supported by a colleague or a security member of staff as they walk from their office as a walking party to their car park. Sad state of affairs. One way that we see organisations mitigating this risk to staff and empowering them to manage their own safety is through our technology. Now, before I talk to you about this technology, I want to just touch upon how our service operates, because this is a very specific feature that I think will fit quite well with this topic. Our organisation provides Personal safety devices in multiple form factors, whether that be a fob or an ID badge. These devices have a one-button press that allow your user to raise an alarm, your member of staff to raise an alarm when they feel at risk. And we're not necessarily saying it's when the risk is upon them. We're actually saying it's when they perceive that risk. They've walked into someone's house or they're going down a street and something's taking place they don't quite feel comfortable with. They press that alarm, and in 3 seconds on average it has come through to our alarm receiving centre, and they have a member of our trained operatives on call listening to them as a member of as a way of reassuring them. Now obviously that's great. What happens if a real incident takes place? Because of our relationship with the police forces, we've actually accredited to a standard called BS 8484. I'm not going to bore you with standards today, but I do want to just mention it because of its importance. BS 8484 is the benchmark for lone worker technology. Having that standard, along with some alarm receiving centre standards, allows us to bypass 999 entirely and guarantee a level 1 police response. And so for your users or members of staff that work in the organisations that you support, that can be really powerful, because we know in those first couple of minutes, that incident, you're getting all the intelligence, you're getting all of the risk, because it's mainly flashpoints, and then you've got us in the background being able to deal with all of that in real time and escalate back to your organisations, to your security teams, or guarantee that response from police if necessary. I'm sure I'll probably get some questions on that later, so feel free to hold them for now. What I want to do, though, is focus in on our app technology, which is focused much more on how to manage your risk when you're travelling. So TravelSafe, I'm going to show you a very quick video here. I'll walk you through it. The technology sits just like that as the app, but the TravelSafe feature is unique. It sits in the app, and your user can press that feature to start their journey plan. It finds their location, they can choose their destination point, and it's using Google Maps overlay to calculate how long that journey should take based on their mode of transport. So we've selected our destination. I can move that pin around if I need to start my journey more accurately, choose my travel method, and like I say, just like Google Maps, it calculates how long that journey will take. I can include further welfare checks if I want to on that journey, and I can also add additional details about the journey, about the risks that I perceive I might face. Could be I'm walking home, it's going to take an hour, and there are no lit streets. They set that journey, and then it acts as a dynamic timer that sits on their phone, and you'll be able to see what that looks like in a second. So as it presents to the user on that screen, it will also present to them on their notifications on their smartphone, so that they know how long they've got. It's not a race. This is just about them cracking on with their journey. If they make it to that location, it automatically recognises that they've arrived, because Google Maps has recognised you've arrived at that destination. It closes the timed activity down. If they don't arrive to that location, it will do a re-up, it will do a recalculation 10 minutes before that journey once, just to assess whether or not your journey has changed or you've hit further traffic. It'll only do it once, because guess what? If it keeps doing a re-up and you never get there, it'll never count down to 0. So it does it once, and then if it actually reaches 0, the actual timer's not sitting on the user's phone, it's sitting within our ARC servers. So even if they've lost signal, we still know that timed activity has reached 0. They should have checked in, or they should have completed their journey. So our ARC operators immediately get that alarm raised in front of them, and they will start to contact the user, escalating internally if necessary, or, like I say, guaranteeing that police response if required. So we talk about adding additional check-ins within that journey. The benefit of this is that you can actually create welfare checks on top of that timed activity. So, for example, my hour journey that I'm doing is walking. I feel like it's higher risk than it normally would. I'm walking in snowy conditions. I can set additional welfare checks every 15 minutes, half an hour, that will encourage the app to contact me proactively and say, are you okay? And if I don't respond to that, it doesn't matter about the travel destination. It matters about that being pressed at that time. And then obviously the alarm receiving centre will get in contact and follow that standard procedure. The biggest benefit of this is that we know human habit is that once you arrive at your destination, you crack on with your job. Doing check-ins and check-outs, starting activities and having to manually close down activities is a pain, creates false alarms, and through our lessons that we've learned, it also means that you lose buy-in to the service. Managers will lose buy-in if they're in escalation contact. Users lose buy-in because it keeps going off. They keep forgetting, you know what, I'll just stop using it. Because this does automatic cancellation upon your arrival, removes all of that risk, all of that effort. We've talked about extending journeys. If your journey changes within the app, you're very easily able to extend it, change your plan, change your destination, change your mode of transport as well. So we've talked a lot there about the functions and the features of the app. I think it's really important to talk about our alarm receiving centre. I think that probably 6, 7, 10 companies in this world could offer you a technology that points to a phone number, that points to an alarm receiving centre, and manages an alarm in some certain way. But the most important thing, is which you'd recognise, is you only realise what you needed until you got it wrong. And that's where great experience, great investment, and great focus on the alarm receiving centre is really important. Our alarm receiving centre is purpose-built. It only listens to, we only monitor personal safety alarms from our customers. We're not managing CCTV, we're not looking at asset tracking, we're not doing anything else. We are purely focused, and we train our ARC operators to be purely focused on providing that reassuring service to the person at the other end. Part of that reassurance is ensuring that we actually get that alarm connected as fast as we can. The standard dictates we need to answer alarms within 10 seconds. 10 seconds feels like an awful long time when you need help. So we've stripped that back as much as we can. It's now an ARC operator listening to your alarm within 3 seconds. So we're getting all the instant, we've got all the context, but also for you as a business or the organisations you work for, you can access that recording, you can access that evidence, and you've got that full context. Nothing worse than an alarm coming through, and then we've only got the last 30 seconds of it. You want to be able to have everything, especially for those litigious moments where it's he said, she started that, she came on to me. You know, you've started to be able to build a better picture around that litigious exercise and potentially stopping any litigation occurring at all. If, let's say, I raise my alarm and, Rick, you raise a call through 999 at the same time, we've both witnessed a fight in a pub, let's say. Not that we would. If I raise my alarm through my app, the ARC operator immediately, within 3 seconds, sees my profile. They know who I am, where I am, my medical information if I've chosen to share it, my location through GPS, my what 3 words location for further granularity, and they've also got an escalation plan that they follow according to whatever's been assigned to those users. Rick, if you had done that through 999, you'd likely be on the phone with the police for 2 or 3 minutes. Whilst I, just through that button press, I'm actually achieving, by bypassing 999 for genuine incidents, a 4-minute response time from the police on average. And if you can imagine that the police have never been so overstretched, they've never been so much in demand, not just as police officers, but as mental health support. You know, being able to get your members of staff and their alarms prioritised over and above anything else that they receive means that you are making a big difference to your users' lives. And, you know, this is a 24/7, 365 operation. There is triple redundancy in place, including disaster recovery plans. We are a bomb-proof, air-locked, vibration-censored building. Obviously, physical incursion is far less risk these days. It's about cyber risk. But, you know, the organisations that we work with, including the MOJ, they take great due diligence in ensuring that we meet all the accreditations and meet the standards that they require, and we surpass them in the most part. Your data just becomes so important at that stage. But for your users, that 24/7, 365 element means that no matter where they are, whether that is they are on a Friday night out with their friends, or they're out with colleagues at lunch break, or they're travelling to and from work, or they're walking their dog on a Sunday, this will work. It will work in exactly the same way. And hopefully that gives the people that work for your organisations a lot of peace of mind, and again improves well-being. Talking about well-being, I just want to focus in on a specific customer that I've worked with in the past, New Look. I appreciate this is retail, but I think that retail feels like quite a good place to start. This is the temperature of risk in the UK pouring out into retailers, and they're dealing with it on a day-to-day basis. You can see what Catherine said there. The main things that they have taken from us would be dedicated devices that are installed within their store environment, but also they realise that actually people don't really feel that much risk in store. Yeah, I mean, they're dealing with abuse. CCTV's there, body cameras are on, guards are around. They do feel quite safe. But when those members of staff are now getting threatened and saying, I'll get you after work, that's when things change. And so what we've seen now is a deployment of our app across all of their workforce, allowing all of their members of staff to get home safely as part of their duty of care. Now, some organisations will say, well, my duty of care actually ends at the hotel door, it ends at the office building. When they get to the car park and leave, that's not my responsibility. I don't think that's really the case that much anymore. With home and hybrid working, with the amount of times that people are working late, working early, being flexible, I think it's something to consider. Marie Curie are also a customer of ours who made significant changes to how they operated because they were getting a lot of false alarms. Because of that, I check in at one end, I need to check out at the other. I've started my timer, I need to remember to close my timer off. Now, obviously, they're getting on with their daily chores. They forget to do that, false alarms, lost buy-in, lost engagement. So, through the use of TravelSafe as that feature that you saw, we're then able to automate that and reduce the false alarms they're receiving and get their staff feeling confident in the service. So, from a business perspective, what does this mean to you? Well, first of all, we've talked a little bit about knowing where your staff are, has tracking tools on it. Like Rick said, you don't have to have that feature, but it's a useful one if you're dealing with an organisation who is international or requires location to help you assign other tasks to new people. It keeps your workers safe wherever, whenever. And I think this is something that kind of harks back to organisations' core values. People are always our major asset, right? They always talk about people. Do they fulfill that need? These kind of solutions do. But that wherever, whenever is quite powerful. Even if you are in Tehran or Israel on New Year's Eve, you're still going to get your alarm raised and have it listened to by our ARC operators every time. Overall, this app delivers an increased sense of well-being and safety. And what we found in a report from Deloitte recently was that for every £1 that you invest in well-being, you receive £4 back in productivity. And that's just productivity. This is an excellent recruitment tool. It's also a fantastic way to reduce members of staff who are leaving, because we know how important on Maslow's needs safety is. This should be one of the key topics that are being addressed by organisations. So we've focused on the UK because that's where our standards exist. Now, obviously, your staff might be working out in the field elsewhere in different countries. We have got an additional service which is called Eurowatch. Forgive the name, it's not actually just Europe, it includes other countries as well, like America, Mexico, Canada. But we protect organisations over 40 other territories as well. While the alarm still comes through to our alarm receiving centre, we triage those alarms on behalf of your SOC or your team. We're doing that. We are then assigning the appropriate response in country and getting a police response in any of those 40 territories. If you want to know more about that, please ask me afterwards. I'll be happy to share you a list of the territories that they are covered in, because any of those that are outside of that territory will be covered through global response. We don't have a relationship with every police force. There aren't standards that exist that govern the police and our service. So, with those 40 countries we talked about with Eurowatch, we can assign a police response. Outside of those, we would deliver this: access to triage those alarms, and then we would simply pass those alarms back to you as an organisation to say, how do you want to manage this next? And you typically start to use your own in-country support network at that point. So that's it from a proactive risk management perspective from the users, from a staff member's point of view. We talked a little bit earlier about critical messaging and mass notification. I did want to mention as well, people have made a good point about bringing tools together. Our organisation isn't just about protecting your lone workers or staff who feel vulnerable. We want you to be able to communicate safely and securely with these people as well. So PeopleSafe Alert is a simple solution that allows you to securely and in an air-gapped way send messages very quickly in the branding that you choose, communicating specific tasks or subject matters to your workforce when an incident takes place. Now that could be a terror threat, that could be a weather incident, it could be a Trump news story, it could be a COVID outbreak or something similar. All of these things, you need to be able to think about how you want to control that narrative on the ground with your workforce. And so you can do that through this feature, not just sending these messages quickly, but also overriding do not disturb at their end so that they do read the message no matter what. That actually results in a 96% open rate within the first minute. And when seconds count and your message is important, that's a really good tool to have. You also get to see live reporting of how this is interacting with those users at their end. Have they acknowledged that message? Have they responded in any way, shape or form? Have they marked themselves as safe as you need them to? Are they following the directive that you need them to? I think that's probably it from me. I think I've talked a lot about technology that we supply. I recognise there are other suppliers out there. I just think we're the best at it. So feel free to catch me afterwards if you want to know a bit more about the detail, but I'd welcome questions, Rick. Thank you.
Any burning questions at this point that can't wait till the panel? No? Yeah?
Yeah, just thank you very much. It was an excellent presentation. In terms of the examples that you gave with the woman in particular, the one who got killed when she was working at a hotel, or the one who got licked, can you just imagine, like, if they had the app, like, how would that help? I really understand the well-being aspect. I think that's a massive plus. But, like, realistically, like, I don't think that they could avoid the situation.
Correct.
But concretely, how would it work in those cases?
Well, I think you're right. This isn't a bulletproof vest. This isn't a way of stopping the incident. There are behavioural things that need to take place, dynamic risk assessment that needs to occur. We know all of this, right? But I think what it comes back to is how quickly does your organisation know about that happening, and how quickly can they support that user after the incident? Because you've only got a small window of time to really make an impact on that person's mental well-being after the event. Obviously, for murders, it's clear you can't make a difference there, but what you can do is you can be the person who's informing the family, not finding out the other way around, because I think that can be quite embarrassing for organisations. I remember there was a story of another professional services company that I work with who said that a member of staff went home on a Friday, they had a stroke that Friday evening, and it was a long weekend, and it was the family that found them on the Tuesday, and they did survive, but they were severely impacted. Now, obviously, having access to this app or having access to any kind of control or mechanism that ensures that they have checked in or checked out of their day, that would give the opportunity for that business to then say, we need to do a bit more investigating here. There are some features that I haven't shown you that would help with those check-ins, check-outs, and other timed activities for when people are doing specific tasks that would have helped. But I think that's probably all we can do.
Thanks.
No, you're welcome.
I guess following on from that, which is a really good point, it is about risk assessing, and we can't remove risk. It's impossible. We know that. For the case of the lady that was licked on the face, I mean, I'm guessing that on arriving at that property, she would probably have felt vulnerable. Tapping in at that point of the first spider sense going off could have, I don't know, and this is a question, I
No,
guess. Is it something that prompts something like an Ask Angela moment where you can open a channel and it stays? I don't know. How does that work?
Exactly. So I think one of the issues that was with that particular case was she was visiting somebody who she knew. The risk level was quite low. It was the random person that was in the house going mental at her for not delivering the right care that was the problem. That's the moment that she should have raised her alarm. And at that point, she could be saying, you need to let me go. Because there was other things going on outside of him finally letting her leave. He was forcibly stopping her from leaving until she delivered the care. That would have elicited a police response, because that's actually, hostage taking. So there would have been a way for her to manage that. And you're right, it's not just about raising the alarm when the incident is upon me. What I would be doing in that situation is I'd raise the alarm if I smell alcohol on someone's breath and I was supposed to be going to their house and delivering them care. Because I'm going to have to challenge them on this. So I know that the risk could get worse. So our ARC operators would sit in on those calls and act as that reassuring service to monitor them while they do it.
Thanks very much, John. Seddon, thank you.
Thank you.